2020 Bowling Green Town Council meeting. We do have a quorum. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Before we get started, I'd like to make 2 additions on the agenda for tonight under delegations. We have the Farmers Market Group to speak on Mayberry Days and Ms. Rollins to speak on the census. And we'd also like to welcome Mr. Manster back to Town Council meeting. Wrong side of the table, but it's nice to have you back. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing in regards to Ordinance 2020-001, ordinance giving the town manager authority to regulate parking. At the December meeting, council asked that the town manager be given authority to administratively restrict parking. Attached in your packet, there's the notice of the public hearing and the ordinance in the draft form.
And I think the chief can just give a little bit of
Okay.
information as well.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just wanted to give a brief highlight of the parking situation we had on the street in front of General District Court, which was the issue that gave rise to this issue in the first place. I've spoken with Clerk again today. He's still on board with the county paying their part of the, once this ordinance takes effect, part of paying their dues to regulate that over there, or to paint the curb and put the signs up. Again, this is just an administrative thing that gives the town manager the authority to regulate parking, so we can address those things as we need to in the future.
It really gives more flexibility to the
Right.
town to respond as needed.
Correct.
And I believe that when the sheriff was here, he indicated he thought it was a safety concern over the courthouse.
Sure.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone that would like to address council on this matter, come to the podium and state your name and address. Second call. Third and final call. Public hearing is closed. Next item on the agenda is the Farmers Market Group, or Mayberry Days.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Madam Attorney, Mr. Town Manager, and members of town staff. My name is Stephen Manster, and there are about 18 people in the area who allow me to call myself the manager of the Bowling Green Community Farmers Market. The Farmers Market has been in existence in Bowling Green for over a decade now, and it has received wide support from the town and wide support from this town council. We have tried to bring people into Bowling Green and provide different services to our community. As we do that, we find that there are different needs in the community and different desires of the residents of the area. With me tonight is Karen Tigner, Gerald English, and Emily Shantz. These ladies have organized events in the community in the past, and they are now currently organizing, as the mayor had mentioned earlier, an event for the spring called Mayberry Days. Now, you'll recall that in the past, similar events have been organized, and at a recent event this past December, These ladies were approached by a number of residents of the area asking for some event in the spring, similar to the Mayberry Days that had been organized in the past. And the farmers market made a determination that we would like to sponsor and help organize that event. So we would like to do that. We have applied for a permit from the town, and the town manager has approved that permit. And that would be for an event on April 25th, Saturday the 25th, along Main Street. And we would have, of course, our normal farmers market. The farmers market this year will start on April 4th and continue every Saturday through the Harvest Festival from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. as we've done for the past decade. But on April 25th, we'd like to expand that to include, of course, the farmers market. Emily Shantz has organized several flea markets for us, and we'd like to have an expanded flea market on the 25th of April as part of this Mayberry Day celebration. We would have crafters here, some food vendors with items that you might not otherwise find in the town of Bowling Green, and some other events like, you recall we had a very successful Ant Bees pie eating contest, and I've been informed that I am not allowed to be a judge because the ladies were afraid that there wouldn't be anything left for other people to sample if I were to judge. So we're looking at something like that. So we'd like to know that we have your support for that event. And the ladies are here to provide some detail if you'd like to have additional information on that. Now, to do that, we would need some support from the town. We talked to the town manager about that. We'll be ordering some porta potties, of course, for sanitation purposes, and some trash receptacles. But we would provide all the labor ourselves. And also for the farmers market, we'll be providing porta potties for our vendors, which we had done in the past with the town's assistance. And in fact, we'd like to ask for your consideration of assistance again. We understand that the cost of the porta potties for Mayberry Days and the farmers market would be approximately $700, and we'd like to ask you to consider some possible assistance for the farmers market for that particular cost. We provide insurance for the events that we organize, and cleanup for those events also. Again, ladies, if have other items.
We're gonna have some music. We're gonna have music.
And yes, thank you. And music. The organizers are talking with some local musicians and singers about providing music, and the town again has agreed to provide the stage, and will be approaching the county for the use of the courthouse lawn. So I trust that will be a very nice event on April 25th.
Council, do you have any questions or any comments?
Just have one quick question. When is Lady Smith doing their Mayberry Day? So we
Well, I didn't know they were doing one. The Mayberry Day?
Lady Smith Day. In May. All right, so I just want to make sure there's no conflict there.
There may be some other events going on the 25th, but again, we feel that because of the organizers being aware of their clients, that the 25th of April is the best time to provide it.
I think it's a great idea. We appreciate all the support and effort that y'all put in just the farmers market, and then to take on this event after a successful holiday event is very nice. I know it's kind of how we envision some of the events back in the day when we hired an events coordinator is that they would also still help coordinate some of this with volunteers, because it's a lot for any one person.
And again, these are the ladies who coordinated the holiday event, and you've seen what they can do, and they do things very well as volunteers.
Yeah.
I have a question,
doubt.
Steve.
Yes.
Isn't it true that you charge a fee for the vendors that come and set up
Yes, for the,
each month?
each month, yes.
So what does that money go to? I mean, I wonder why you're asking us to do porta potties. Where does that money go?
Well, we do have other costs. We do some advertising, again, insurance, we're talking about hundreds of dollars. And we have an agreement with Verizon for the use of their property, and they require an insurance policy in their name also, and we have to pay for that. So we're talking hundreds of dollars.
I just want to say, I think it's fabulous what you guys are doing. I loved it last year. It's great for the town. And I have a question for anyone here in this room that could answer this. Do we not offer our facilities here in this building for a service as well? And why not? Is that possible?
For bathrooms.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the town hall is rented for private event on Saturdays. So, we have not had town hall open or accessible on Saturdays during farmers market.
Well, I'm thinking not necessarily for the just everyday market, but for the special events that they're doing just once a month, and this one particularly. I don't know if that's an option, but I feel like that would be certainly something we should look at.
Well, I'd like to congratulate the ladies for taking this on, because this is something that, needs to happen. I mean, the town, I always say should not be in the purpose of putting on events. It's a costly deal for the town to do. When we can offer support and a small donation to help out, it makes it cheaper in our end, all the way around. And so if we need to give you some money to help out with the porta potties, then I'm all for it. I mean, because a little here and there is a whole lot better than a whole lot here, and we get nothing from it.
Thank you, sir.
So, thank you, ladies.
And also, just as a note, Emily has organized for us a flea market once a month during the farmers market year. So it would be the second Saturday of each month during the farmers market year. So that's, and I don't know if any of you had a chance to be present on Main Street during the flea market in the past year, but it's wonderful to see Main Street lined with parked cars on both sides, and even the private parking lots full of cars with people dragging items to those parking lots.
Mr. Mayor, I believe this really fits well with the new focus that we're trying to do with the Parks program. And it's part of what it is. It's part of bringing the community together. And it doesn't have to be a super huge event. It doesn't have to be a mega thing going on. But it's an opportunity for the community to come together like Mayberry. Nice, low-key, a lot of fun, a lot of, family activities. So I'm in full support of it. I think it's a very good idea. Are we going to get 500, 600 people? Who knows? We really don't know that. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is to bring the community together. And I think that really fits well with the new initiative that we've decided to do with the Parks program.
I have a quick question. How many vendors are you expecting?
I would say between 40 and 50 at least.
Between four, do you think you can hold them all over there in that courtyard? You're going to go to the back like you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause we could,
They're kind of going to be separated. So you've got your crafters versus flea market people and such.
okay.
And along
Good.
those,
Terrific job, ladies.
Thank you.
I was going to say that along those lines, we've had tremendous support from the property owners on Main Street. Attorney Hancock, Jim Day, And as I said, we have an agreement with Verizon for the use of their property for these events.
Don't forget Gene.
Right.
Gene left us these.
And G. Davis, yes. Thank you. Yeah, actually, the most important piece of property.
Just to confirm, you don't need any roads shut down or anything like
No.
that from
No, sir.
Perfect.
We could use Barney pies.
Yeah,
Good news, Mark.
we'll have him out there with his bullet in his pocket.
I was gonna say, if, I don't know if y'all seen our lip sync video we did last year,
Yeah.
but if you need some marketing material, we done it, my son and I done the opening scene in black and white from Andy Griffith show. It's,
All right.
Is there a motion to,
Yeah, I'll make a motion, Mayor, to cover the cost of the porta potties. What do you say, $700 is what you were looking for? All right.
I second that.
okay, we have a motion and a second to support in the amount of the porta potties for the year. Is there any further discussion? Yes. Okay, we got a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We hope to provide this and other successful events for the town.
Yes, thank you all very much.
Part of, actually, my total involvement consists of providing a telephone number, signature, and expert trash removal. So if anybody has any questions or comments or concerns, please don't hesitate to call me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Looking forward to it, thank you.
Okay, next item will be Ms. Rollins to speak on the census.
Good evening. My name is Jessie Rollins, and I live in the Mattapanai district, just right outside the town of Bowling Green. Before I get into the census, I would like to just offer 2 cents to add to what you guys are doing. Tinseltown Day, when I was trying to make my way up to Bowling Green, if you catch the traffic wrong, it's very interesting getting off of Edwards Road. And I noticed as I came through that I didn't see any signs, the yard sale signs out on the bypass. And so one of my observations, and I think I shared it with a few people, was when you're doing something like that, if you would put some signs that would direct traffic on the exits that come into Bowling Green to let all that bypass traffic know that something is happening. I don't know about the rest of you, but when I travel, yard sales and bazaars and words like that capture my attention quickly.
Thank you.
All right, so I am the Complete Count Census Committee Chair. Said that 10 times, right? So I'm here to just share some information with you guys to let you know the census is coming. It's 2020. We have a job to educate our community about how easy it is to get counted. There will be 3 ways to get counted this year: internet, phone calls, and of course, answering questions when the lovely enumerator comes knocking at your door. This is the first time citizens will be able to go online and fill out the census questionnaire. Postcards will be mailed out in March. There will be 5 mailings, so everyone won't be trying to get on the www.census.com at the same time. If you get it done before April 1, you will not have an enumerator knocking on your door unless, of course, they get lost. It is important for citizens to understand their value to their community. According to a study from Richmond, each person is worth approximately $2,000. Over 10 years, that is $20,000 in federal money to Caroline County. For every 50 people that get missed in the census count, that amounts to around $1 million lost to our community. The census website will go live around March 12th. The Census Committee has worked hard in putting together a flyer. It's a copy of our flyer and our logo that you see I am proudly wearing tonight. and to which at this moment I would like to point out Ms. Melissa Lewis, who serves on the committee, who went above and beyond my computer skills and took our basic I Count logo and turned it into a very beautiful logo that we're using on everything that we put out. This flyer is on the county website, and I'm encouraging everybody to print it, post it, and email it to everyone and everywhere. By working together, we can improve the 2010 census numbers that only reflect, and this is data that came out at the Census Committee meeting when we first met in Fredericksburg. Caroline County is shown as only receiving funds for 76% of our population. Now, I don't get into the weeds of numbers and know what data falls on whose desk, but somebody says we are 76%. Now, if you remember in school, 100 minus 76 is 24. So there's 24% of funds somewhere that we're not getting, and nobody's making sure that we get it. The numbers on the same data shows our population at a little over 28,000 people. At a recent meeting I attended, it showed the county's population a little over 30,000. So let's go back to elementary math. 30,000 minus 28,000 equals 2,000. 2,000 times 2,000 equals 4 million. Put your calculators out. Remember, each person's value is approximately $2,000. So if our census numbers have missed around 2,000 people in 2010, that's $4 million that Caroline County is not getting. Multiply that over 10 years, that is $40 million. Now, I can't go to anybody's government office and prove that that is hardcore facts, but in just general information out of Richmond, and you see it on the TV and you see it in all the census publications, we are worth around $2,000 of that federal pie in the sky of monies that come to a locality based on the census count. And so for each person not counted, 2,000 times 2,000 for 10 years. And so that's where I come up with that number. So of course the goal is to improve over that 28,000 that is listed in the 2010 census for Caroline County. We are ordering yard signs and banners, and we'll be asking businesses to post the census information. Our goal is to get this information. Our banner is very simple. It just simply lists census funds help support schools, fire and rescue, police, roads, medical facilities, and overall our community. So this is our banner that we're in the process of ordering, that we will, plans are to put it throughout the county. There are people on the committee that serve in each of the districts, and their job is to list where we want to put it, to make sure all the nooks and crannies and post offices and churches and things in each district in our community, that you will see, no matter where you go, you will see the iCount logo for the Caroline County 2020 census. Any questions?
No, just make sure staff has all these graphics so we can blast it out on our social media and our website. And we'll do our part to try to advertise it as much as we can.
I do have a
Make it a little challenge to see if we can get everybody to do it in a timely fashion.
All right,
Here
deal
in town.
is by April 1, on April 1, if you have not answered, that's when the first download of addresses will hit. And those are the people that will get the mail-in form. And so as you go online or do the 800 number, you remove yourself out of the enumerated list. And that's the whole goal. You don't want anybody knocking on your door. And if you have senior citizens in your family, you don't want, you really don't want people knocking on doors nowadays. Even though the enumerators will have the proper ID, we know in this era, anybody can almost copy anything and knock on your door and say that they are who they claim to be. with, ill-gotten intentions.
Will they be wearing any attire or shirt or
They,
hat?
they will have their, formal ID, and, I'm not sure if it's gonna be like a little bit bigger than a phone or a tablet. That part I'm not sure of.
And you go live, they can start on doing it on the internet on March 12th?
Around the 12th, you'll know when you get your postcard.
Okay.
Each postcard, your address will have a number, and when you go online, you key in your number and you answer the questionnaire.
Okay, so that was my other question, like if we knew somebody elderly that didn't have internet access, we could do that for them
You
as
could
long
do
as
that
we had
for
their
them.
postcard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, part of the education with working with the schools is getting the children involved so that they can go home and help grandma WWW and go online and that sort of thing. So that's part of the school's focus.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the public comment section. If anybody would like to speak to council on any matter, please come to the podium. Okay. Moving along, item number 2 is staff reports, the Bowling Green Police report. Are there any questions or for the chief? You have any comments?
No, I just wanted to thank you guys for the Mayberry. That was a good deal. So at some point, I would encourage you to sit down. I would anticipate some foot traffic, so we can work some kind of plan on that. You caused me to lose money at your flea market.
Chief, that was a nice donation that you got.
Yes, the United States Deputy Sheriff's Association donated us several items, including a alpha sensor for roadside DUI testing. So that was about an $800 donation.
Off the chart here, do you have any idea how much your body cameras cost, just roughly?
Body cameras, it depends on what you get, depends on what
I mean, just
supplier
roughly.
you use. The body cameras are not that expensive, I will tell you that. It's the storage that runs expensive. There's several ways to store the store the videos. One is a in-house server, which I can tell you, we don't have a whole lot of room at our agency over there. The going trend is an iCloud account to store the videos, which gets expensive. If that's something council wants to look into, then we'll certainly look into it. I will tell you, I'm sorry?
I'm very interested, yeah, I
Okay.
think you should.
I will tell you, we'll have to pass another policy on that, and we have several more policies that need to be passed before we get into that.
Okay.
Just to be clear.
Chief, I did have a quick question for you, just as things go forward. The state legislature is looking to do away with inspections.
Yes, sir.
And that's a really concerning thing, and I know you do a great job with the truck inspections. They also do away with truck inspections?
At the state level, commercial carriers are classified in two different arenas. They're intrastate, which is in-state only, that's your local log trucks, and the interstate carriers. So the interstate carriers still require federal annual inspection, so they still get theirs. I'm not sure what they're going to do on the intrastate carriers with the log trucks. They still fall under the federal parameters, which means we can still stop and inspect them. But I see where you're going. It is a cause for concern. And I will tell you the last information I got on that particular piece of legislation was they were looking at going to a biannual inspection rather than doing away with it altogether. Obviously, we're not a fan of it, but for safety concerns.
Yeah, it's a dangerous thing. If you've ever been to Chicago and the bumpy roads and no inspection on the cars,
Sure.
doors hanging off of cars.
Sure.
Thanks for your opinion.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Ms. Rollins for all you do for the community too. You do a lot of stuff that goes unnoticed. All right.
Okay, next item is our Public Works and Utilities Department monthly report. Any questions? questions for Billy? I know we've had quite a few water leaks that have been time consuming, but been taken care of.
Yeah, I think 3.
Any questions on the prepared report?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure this is the appropriate time maybe to have a discussion about the issue with the connection of water and sewer over on, yeah, 240 North Main Street.
That's been pulled. They actually researched it and found the lateral.
I understand that, but my question is, did we go over and inspect that and determine that we weren't connected to it, and now we've decided that we are?
You know, Glenn, I wasn't here when I first.
I can address that. Billy wasn't here, and Kevin Wegman was over there, and he's the one that was doing the field work for me on that, and he's the one that indicated that what happened was he went over to determine, first of all, where we said the line came in isn't where it came in, so they were trying to find out where the pipes exited from the house. And some of these older houses, they had 2 systems at one time. One was for the gray water and one went to the sewer. So he went over, found out where everything in the building came out, and where it came out, it went under a patio. So they didn't want to bust the patio, so they started digging or following the pipe after the patio, and it led to, there was no T's or anything, and it led to a septic tank that was totally filled, and the drain field was plugged, and they didn't see any T's off of that. So he indicated to me that he was very confident that it wasn't connected. There was some miscommunications in between. I don't know exactly when they found out, but what they did was to allow her, she wasn't being able to take baths in the house or do her laundry or any of that. They pumped down the tank, and they were going to let it flow until we could fix the problem into that tank. Well, it still didn't work, and that's when they came in, and that's when they started to bust up the sidewalk. He didn't get that word back to me before I put the packet together, that they determined it was underneath that sidewalk where the T came out. And Billy's been working with them on finding out where, we still don't know where that, unless you manage to go on site, because they've been closed down with the rain here, where that comes back into our system. But it was clogged at that T, and then it's clogged also at another elbow. And as Billy described to me, where the problem in the sewer line was, is the sewer line went over an old abandoned well, and it started to settle, and it took out the sort of like ground support on the pipe. So as it corroded, it just started going down into the ground there. So it's been a while, and it plugged up with, you could probably tell me better.
The whole line collapsed. It was like a 2-foot drop from where it connected.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay, so our side of the line, not.
we're good. It was,
The citizens line.
yeah.
Citizens
And-
responsible for all the work.
That's fine.
And there was a septic there, but they never filled it in, like, you know, when they abandoned it, it's still up with concrete.
Yeah.
So she's
And they
doing-
did do that.
Yeah, she's doing all that work
Yeah.
at her expense
Yeah,
now.
just want
to abandon
clarification.
that.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Next item is Economic Development and Events Coordinator's monthly report.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for having me tonight. I'll just briefly go over some highlights on my report and then take any questions that you all may have. The first item is just kind of covered under Bowling Green events. You'll notice that there's an attachment in your packet for the 2020 event calendar. And I would like to get your consideration on approving that tonight. The first event is the Spring Clean Sweep, which is the last Saturday in May. Usually that event is on the first Saturday of June, but that conflicts with the Belmont Stakes, which is a tie-in with the Wine Festival. So, and the weekend before the 30th is actually Memorial Day. So May 30th seemed to make the most sense for Clean Sweep. We then have the Bowling on the Green Virginia Wine Festival on the 6th of June. I had a great meeting with property owners earlier this week to discuss some plans for that. It is the fifth anniversary for that event, so that's something really to be proud of, that event has sustained. You'll go on to see some Music on the Green dates there. We did extend that or I am recommending that we extend that into the first 2 Fridays of September, as we did last year. The Fall Clean Sweep, obviously the Harvest Festival, and then the Christmas Parade of Lights on the 12th of December. Speaking of the Christmas parade, and while you all are considering the 2020 events calendar, it has been brought to my attention that there is some folks would like to consider the day versus night parade. It is completely up to you all. I am at your pleasure and will do whatever it is that you all decide. There is no right or wrong answer. Ultimately, we did do a Facebook poll a year ago to kind of gauge what the public thought. But at the end of the day, I work for council. You all work for the people here in town, and I will take direction from you all on that. There was also some mention about some expenditures that we pay for the Christmas parade, namely the horse-drawn carriage. There seemed to be that pulls Santa Claus at the end. There seemed to be just a question of, is this something that council wants to spend? It's about $600 to secure those horses in that carriage, and the question has come up, would you rather see Santa Claus in, a privately owned vintage vehicle or something like that? Again, this is, I work for you all, so you guys tell me what you'd like to see happen, and I'm here to do whatever it is that you all think is whatever direction you all give me. Are there any questions about the events calendar before I move on?
When you took the public survey, what did they say, day or night?
It was about a 60-40, 60 for night and 40 for day, roughly, and it was about that number. Not everyone's on Facebook, so there's some variation there, but that is my recollection from that time when that poll was taken.
Two things. One is the last two Music on the Greens. Was it getting dark before it was over on the last ones?
Yes,
Right.
and there was concern toward the end, because last year was the first year that we actually extended it into September, and I believe council member Gene Davis brought it up, the concern of light and safety.
Okay.
So that last one, we had Public Works come out and bring construction lighting out, which helped a lot, and so we'll do that this year as well.
Okay. And the other thing is, on the Christmas parade, if we keep it at nighttime, which I don't think is a bad idea, eventually we would like to see maybe some other groups or something take on the effect of during the daytime, we have Christmas activities, that lead up to the parade somehow, like a Winterfest day, so I mean, it's just an idea.
Absolutely, it's a heavy traffic day in town. We currently work with the Art Center and with the Caroline County Public Schools on the Student Winter Art Show that happens during the day. I know the Historical Society does some things that day too. It's smart because you do have a lot of folks in town there that day for the parade, so that makes sense.
Another question, sorry.
Sure. That's okay.
At the Harvest Festival, I know you said Whiskey Revival is playing for our Music on the Green, but do you have them lined up for the Harvest Festival?
I do not, and typically, and I'm still working on booking talent for Harvest Festival, but I will say, and this is again, I do what you all want me to do, but I typically do not book the same bands for Music on the Green as Harvest Festival. And the reason for that is just to avoid redundancy and the same groups playing over and over and over again. Reunion, which is a band that traditionally has played at the Harvest Festival, approached me this year about playing Music on the Green, and I explained to them, if you know, happy to book you guys for Music on the Green. People love you here, but that means that you're going to have to forego your slot at the Harvest Festival. And again, it's just to keep the entertainment, to keep it different and not have the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
My concern was just because they were local here in town, just to give them a plug. I know they've gotten a lot of publicity. Understand.
Sure. It's a good question. Council member Gene Davis has brought that up as well about Patsy and the Country Classics, and we've had that conversation as well, so valid. Any other questions about the event calendar?
I'll just give a plug on the parade. I vote for the nighttime because if we're going to continue with the Bowling Green Christmas Parade of Lights, I'm not sure how well you will see the lights during the day. So I thought this year was wonderful. The amount of creativity and effort that went into all the beautiful displays was great. That's just my vote.
The Christmas Parade of Lights is definitely built out over the last 5 years that we've done it. It's you can see that a lot of the people that come back they're getting more and more and more lights, and it's becoming more and more fantastic. So thank you for your feedback. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. When I was little, I was in the parade, you know, and it was during the day. So either way, it's going to be a lovely day in Bowling Green. Moving on, just to touch on some economic development initiatives here. We did, the EDA did approve a facade improvement grant for 111 North Main Street, which is the Artisan by Joey space. So that was done. We're also actively working on how to make the 301 commercial corridor more marketable. I had a very productive meeting with Gary Wilson earlier this week, who is Economic Development and Tourism with Caroline County. And I'm pleased to report that the county has committed to, we're looking for ways to fund some marketing material for that corridor that we can, something nice and sleek that we can present to some big developers and say, you know, this opportunity is here, and something that's really going to represent Bowling Green and represent that corridor and opportunities here well. The county has committed to donating or reimbursing the town up to $1,000 for any type of marketing initiatives that we have. So that was really great news. I also asked about in terms of saving money, and so that we're not spending tons of money on graphic design and things like that. Not that we won't, absolutely. We will probably need some graphic design services, but I did pose the question and asked if we could have use of any graphics that the county has used and currently owns, if we can use those in our own marketing material, which they agreed to. So that was really good. It was a productive meeting, and I'm looking forward to working with Gary Wilson more regularly to and utilizing the county as a resource as we move forward and market those opportunities. Let's see, I'm getting a new office. Well, I got a new office, but it's getting painted. And I got a desk donated from Councilmember Gene Davis and a chair, and I've got some area rugs in there, and I got file cabinets donated. Everything's been donated, including the property. I got some great area rugs to go in there, and Public Works is working on painting it now. And I peeked in today, and I really think it's going to be great. I'm very excited about it, and very excited to have kind of a home base here in Bowling Green, and I think it's going to really lend itself well to my own productivity as well. So From
Yeah,
a
I know you
community.
make Mr. Manster's heart proud when you talk about all these donations.
From a community relations standpoint, I attended the BGVA Community Alliance meeting in January, as well as the Community Heart and Soul meeting. I believe Councilmember Mark Gaines will probably speak more to that, but it's ongoing, it's going well. We're seeing a very strong level of volunteerism in town, and I feel very optimistic about where that program is going. I've also been meeting regularly with Fort AP Hill with their MWR, which is kind of like their Parks and Recreation group, to see how we can cross promote. And this isn't just a one-time meeting where it just kind of happens and there's a lot of talk and then it goes away. We're meeting once a month. So today I had my February meeting with MWR. So it's good that we're just keeping the conversation going. It can be a lot of red tape when you're dealing with the base, but even if we're able to collaborate in any small way, that's a success for Bowling Green and for the base. I'm kicking off a Main Street Business Spotlight on Facebook, and working with Main Street businesses on just spotlighting their business. This will be ongoing throughout the year. So it's not something you'll see, every week, but you may see it every couple weeks or you'll see it throughout the year. Last month we featured Ashley Lipscomb photography, and it was really nice and gained a lot of traction. Been working with the Mayberry Day group and the farmers market, and again, hats off to this group for the incredible job that you all have done. Tinseltown was a huge success. The farmers market itself has grown immensely, and it really brings people to town, and that's what we're all here for. So thank you. And I've also spoken with Mr. Manser and offered any support from our end, from a marketing standpoint or logistics or anything that may be necessary that I can help with. I'm happy to do that. That about wraps it up for me, unless you all have questions for me. Yes, ma'am.
So quickie, are you using any kind of Instagram or just?
We just developed our Instagram, the Town of Bowling Green Instagram page, actually, the latter part of 2019. So it's growing. It's a slow process, but yes, the Town of Bowling Green is leaping into 2015. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Next item is the town clerk's treasurer's monthly report. Do you have anything to add or any questions?
I have only one thing to add. Monday, a team of auditors will be here. So anyone who's been through audits in the past, has been one person that's shown up for one day. This is going to be 4 or 5 people that are going to be here for 5 days. So it's going to be, if you come in, you're going to see they're going to be set up in the ballroom, and they're going to come in and get this audit field work knocked out. Hopefully in a week. It's 2 years worth. It's FY18, FY19. So we're really excited about that. We've been working really hard this week getting their list, their checkoff list, trying to get it together to minimize the work they have next week. But if you stop by next week, you'll see we're going to be running around here with auditors. And as a result, Reese just pointed out the audit cost is going to be more than it has in years past. But we're also getting a way more in-depth audit than we've ever received in recent years.
Money well spent. Okay. Next item is the town manager's report.
There's a few additional items I'd like to brief you on. We're reaching an end on Muni Code. We've got all our attorneys' comments and our comments. I have one major thing I'm working on is we're going to be pulling all the fee schedules, any reference to any fee out of each section and put it in one table. So I need to get that to them over the next week. Also, in the next week, I'll be reaching out to several firms to get prices for solid waste. We're at a point where we can extend our current contract 1 more year for 3%, whereas we can go out and see if we can get a lower price at this point. So I'm going to try to get that back to the get those quotes back to the budget committee, including the budget process. And according to our contract, if we're gonna go with waste management, we need to come to terms by April 1st if we're gonna extend it. Also, we're working on a 301 smart scale application. The way the process is gonna work this year, and Melissa actually knows more details than me, and I wasn't here when the training was held. But the initial, I'll call it pre-application, it's gotta be in by April 1. It's where you gotta basically get your placeholder in there with at least the rough outline of your project, and you have till September 1st, August 1st to get a completed application. There's 2 pots of money. One is the state pot for these are grants, 100% state-funded highway projects, and they do it every 2 years. And last time we applied, there's a state pot of money, which we won't get any of that money. I didn't realize because you really need matching funds, and the vast majority of that money goes to Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads because they have the additional taxing authority, or to the larger cities like Fredericksburg that can put money on the application. And then there's like $14 million for district projects. We put in for all the improvements on 301 last time, and our project was $9 million. Well, they're not going to give us $9 million out, $14 million for the whole district. So they told us to focus on a much smaller project this year, and also for scoring factors that we needed to include things like multimodal, sidewalks, bike paths, commuter parking lots. So we're working with the George Washington Regional Commission. They have money for rural planning, and they have staff that puts these projects together, and they're working with us and the Planning Commission on the transportation element of the project. So what we're looking at, just so you know, so we're looking at this intersection on Chase Street is a very high scoring safety issue because of the accident count there. We also need sidewalks down through the meadows, down to the end of the street for the senior housing. We have no sidewalks, and anybody that wants to come up from those neighborhoods have to. We have a parking lot up here that's unpaved that we could call the commuter lot, special event lot, that we could get paved. Other features they're looking at that we want to be cost conscious, and they're working on that, is we could extend some of the bike paths. We could do some share the road, but we could come around to Broadus, sort of come up, go down to Anderson, back to Broadus, and the bike paths in on Broadus, we could continue that. And then the George Washington Regional Commission is talking about we should probably fix up some curving there when we come in from Broadus. And I've also asked that they look at what the cost would be to extend the deceleration lane on that curve. I think we've all talked about that. That's way too short. So there's the region, the county, each county gets 4 slots, and the town can't apply by themselves. It's got to be county applying on behalf of the town, or it's the George Washington Commission gets to do 4 regional ones. The counties reserve 1 slot for us, so they're going to price and give us a strategy on whether we should go for 1 or 2 projects. And if there's only 1 slot, if all the others are filled, then we'll probably just go with, and we have to restrict costs, we'll go with the Chase Street one. Now, one of the things just in the future, so I'll be coming back, giving approval to submit the application in March. You get additional points also for having it be a component of your comprehensive plan. So we'll be working with the Planning Commission. There's 2 components of the comprehensive plan that we want to move forward with on an expedited basis. One is the future use map for the 301 corridor, the system and marketing of the opportunity zone, and this transportation element. So between now and August, we'll have after the planning commission goes through the work that's being prepared by George Washington, we'll go to public hearing, bring it to the council for them to go to public hearing and ask you to adopt that element of the comprehensive plan. The last thing is I'm working with Pam Weldon on conditions for special use permit. I've handed out some of the preliminary discussions I've had with Pam. I'd like to get your input on things, particularly hours of operations. She wants, I've already talked to our attorney, she wanted us to waive the residential sign requirements for her house, but we can't do that. We need to stick to what we had at Magnolia project, where they have the little residential sign out there. Two things, so I'd like you to look at what she's prepared and dropped off today. Give me your feedback if you want additional conditions or you think there needs to be changes to those conditions. It covers everything from parking to displays in the front yard, how you're going to store, where you're going to store your inventory, parking lot, just complying with the county's building code for commercial operations. Two things I would like guidance on since this didn't go through some of the earlier process on consideration of the conditions, whether you wanted me to send out some final conditions to adjacent landowners, and whether you wanted me to seek planning commission input at their March meeting before I bring it back to the council. So I'm just open to direction on, do you want me just to continue working with Pam and present it to the council, or do you want me to do a greater outreach to the adjacent landowners and the planning commission?
I think in years past, we've just brought that back to council, but it's up to council how we want. I mean, the landowners were notified in the original application, and the planning commission has already seen the original application.
Mr. Town Manager, the document that we have in front of us here, the 6 completing prior to the antique store coming on board, are you going to be in control of colors with that, parking spaces, those kind of things? I'm not really seeing any detail.
We haven't, that's what I'm saying. This is, we talked in general on things, so she came back with this. Like I said, my schedule is pretty busy over the next week or two, but those are issues that I want input. Do you think those are things that I should be asking her? Just tell me, send me email, whatever, and I'll bring them to the discussion.
Yeah, I see a couple of the line items. She wants a year to get some of it done, and then another extension of a year to get it done. You know, you got a business, you got to get it up and running, you got to make the investment. I don't see why it's going to take 2 years to get this small amount of items done here. And again, to the sign issue, I think that's very, very important. This really kind of goes back to the discussion point that I sent in last meeting when I wasn't here in regards to an architectural review committee. And just to give you a background on that, the EDA has volunteered to be the architectural review committee. I know Jason had concern about getting new members on there, but the EDA has said they would be willing to be the architectural review committee if we want to do that, set that up. This is exactly why that discussion came up. So I think we need to consider that at a point in time to move that forward. It takes some pressure off of the town manager to do that. It gets an overarching view of what's going on to make sure consistency within the town and not have things that aren't really beneficial to the visual impact of the town and the business district.
Yes, we need some type of framework to start with as far as what they can enforce, what we want them to enforce, and things like that. I want to get in, me personally, I want to protect the town, but at the same time, I don't want to get in the business of it's a property rights, you know, deal there. So I just want to make sure we do it. When we do it right. Are there other localities that we can borrow their guidelines on the architectural review?
The state code sets out, the criteria for that. I can get that for you.
Yeah, and I can tell you that is no fun committee to be on. You can be called a lot of names for enforcing the codes and asking questions. But the architecture review committee, the EDA said they would be more than willing to take that on. It's a responsibility with the proper boundaries.
I have a question about that, Glenn. Are they looking at safety issues? Is that, when you say architectural, I'm not sure I'm understanding. Are you just looking at facades and what that is, or do they kind of go in and make sure? Because that's always my concern with any business in this town is, I might see things that appear unsafe for someone to be in there. Is that what do they look at all of that, or?
It depends on the structure that they're given. We did in the association that I lived in. We had also that responsibility of looking at the safety issues too.
As far as the building now, if you said the county's building official handles the structural part of unsafe buildings for us. Like I said, I just want to make sure we get the framework right. I don't want if somebody or even myself has to go paint my shutters or paint my house, but I got to go through a long process to get it approved.
Right.
What I do, at the same time, I want to protect the historic town and the look of it, but it's a fine line there that we need to, so when we do this or explore this, I'd like to see how other localities have done it and protect it.
Yeah, the key is the framework that you set for the authority to do that, and they have judgment in there, and so, there's some very town-focused folks on that EDA committee, and so they want to do the right thing for the town.
We just have to also be careful with the EDA because it's not fully just town citizens, it's also county residents on the EDA, so. We just have to, I'm not saying we're against it, and I appreciate them offering that, but maybe we make it a subcommittee of the town people on the EDA if we're gonna do this. I don't want somebody from Ladysmith that's on the EDA to tell me what we can and can't do in the town, so. We gotta make sure we get it framed up the right way. I'm all for protecting the town, but I also lived in a HOA that I was happy when I left.
If I could just
Everybody is.
comment to a question Deborah had. This is an unusual situation. A lot of these steps would have been covered in the planning commission. So many things, the sign, a 4-foot sign, a lot of these things would have been presented and gone over so that we would make sure that everything is safe and all the guidelines are followed. Kevin does come in, inspections are met, but the way this all unfolded, this is the way it's happening. So those things are usually taken care of even before they get to town council. So that's what's up.
Yeah. That's what I was
I can
thinking.
envision the architectural review committee working closely with the planning commission also.
If we have an architectural review committee, does somebody have to be certified on there?
No, not that I'm aware of. Andrea, do you know if you have to be certified?
No, they do not.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Do we have anybody with enough knowledge in building and stuff to be able to do that with the codes and stuff?
I think that's where Kevin comes into, a review committee can point out things. They can't make you do anything if they're not an engineer. That's where Kevin comes into place, and that can be handled prior, like Valerie's saying, that can be handled prior to it even getting to us. Safety factors, like they got here, Kevin's already gone through and done a occupancy permit. That's when he would look then and say, hey, what safety features do we see here? And, we being engineers, we can help you get it structurally set, and be able to make the decision.
Architectural review. The architectural review is primarily the exterior of the facility, the facade, the landscape, those kind of things. But yeah, the structure itself, the safety of that, certainly coordinate that with the county official and the planning commission.
Okay. What's council's pleasure is to Do you want to explore an architectural committee? I mean, I need guidance from council on what you want. That it's not my opinion.
I
I'm
don't
only opinion.
Yeah, I feel like we should make sure in the future that these things are handled in the planning commission first. I mean, I feel like we're kind of attacking this from different. So I would like to see things kind of go through the right channels, and then if there are questions, let's divert it back to where it needs to be done, where those decisions should be made.
I think the EDA would play an important part with the architectural review. In most areas, counties, townships, the EDA is the person, or the ISHNA is the person, or the organization that handles those reviews. It's a review that they're doing just to make sure that everything, it's like Fredericksburg, you can't, color anything red unless it's Wedgwood blue or something like that. So it's them just making sure that everything is to standards that will be set. It's not that they're going to make decisions to tear down a building and rebuild it. It's just to make sure whoever brings something to them is just met with the standards that they're coordinating.
I've just got one question on, you're talking about just the business districts and businesses, you're not talking about residential areas. Okay.
I mean, this was just brought up tonight just to throw that in front of us for discussion and our ideas, and get back to Reese. We just stumbled onto the architectural review board, so I don't think it's something that we need to put a lot of thought into tonight, but I think it's something that maybe the EDA and the planning commission can look at, and see what they can come up with, maybe bring back later on.
Yeah, we don't have a structure, but it was an opportunity to bring an idea to the table to protect the town. That's what it's about, to protect the integrity of the town. You don't want somebody coming in here building some kind of unusual, strange, out of kilter structure that doesn't enhance that community. So yeah, it's certainly worth consideration. We can certainly talk about it again.
If you want, give me direction, we could work with the EDA and Planning Commission for them to come back and consult with the attorney on the guidelines and put on an agenda for discussion, May or June, something like that, a couple of months, give them time to put something together for discussion instead of just general talk, something that you can react to.
Then council. But
I feel like I don't want to I don't want to put them on this for Pam. I know she's.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about doing this for
Okay.
Pam. My only deal is, do you want me to reach out to the adjacent landowners and touch base with the planning commission before I come back? Or do you want me to try to get things done and wrap up something with Pam to come back at the March meeting, or reach out more and come back at the April meeting, is basically what I'm asking direction on.
So you want to email your questions, or you want that discussion to go?
Well,
As far as
your individual input, just give me as much as you want, but the other actors to reach out with, I'd like you to give me that tonight, whether you just want me to deal with your comments and my feelings on some of these things with Pam to get more specific on this. So that's
The
really,
homeowners, the adjacent owners have been notified.
they were, I wasn't here, but it was my understanding they received notice of both the text amendment and a special use permit on a hopeful passage of a text amendment that didn't have conditions attached to it or prepared by staff. And so there was no conditions that were forwarded here. And it's my understanding, again, I wasn't at last meeting, that when it came here that the text amendment had passed, but when they were looking at the special use permit, and I'm not sure, but I think the planning commission had recommended denial. But in either case, it was brought up before it was passed.
There was no conditions attached to it. So I was direction that you defer action on it until conditions come in place and come back.
Yes, that's correct. We deferred to come back with those exceptions, and we would explore it from that point forward. That would be the starting point on discussion.
So let's start that process. How fast track you want.
Well, the landowners have already been probably notified anyhow. These are just conditions for her set operation. So I think that's something that we just need to deal with her. The landowners have already had their right to come and speak. So, I mean, we just need to deal with her, I feel, that on her conditions, on getting it up, running, so that we feel it's safe and fits in with the community.
I agree with that. So we could move forward and make our suggestions here. And I'm sure she doesn't have any objections of us making a site visit. As long as we contact her, we can talk to her. Do we have any questions?
No, she just wants to know what we want of her. And,
Yeah.
the sensitive issues that adjacent landowner, but that, we'll put those out in our agenda. Hours of operation is generally going to be one of the most sensitive issues, days of operation. So be sure that unsightly things aren't being, that they're either in a building or screened. But those will be in those conditions, and those are the type of things that I like your sensitivity on your sense of the community on those issues that are outlined in the memo.
I don't see any challenges if you want to bring it back to the planning commission as well, just to fill them in on everything that's transpired. But
So I'm just looking for a consensus. So is the consensus just to work directly with the council and bring it back?
Let me poll council. Work with this council?
Yes.
Okay, work with this council. Okay, any other?
That's the end of my additional comments. Any questions, I can answer on the rest.
Okay, and refresh me, we did direct you to work with the EDA and the Planning Commission for the guidelines for the community.
Back with some sort of discussion piece with some specifics.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to pull item number 9 out of the consent agenda. There's some information that's not in there that I would like to see in there. If you would like to address that now, we'll pull that out for later.
Okay, we'll pull number 9. And is there a motion to approve items 7, 8, 10, and 11?
I have a question on one of the bills. I've talked to Melissa about it, but I would like David to explain. It's,
So you're gonna pull that too.
okay.
Okay, is there a motion to approve 8, 9, and 11? I'm sorry, 8, 10, and 11.
I'll make a motion we approve 8, 10, and 11.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 8, 10, and 11. Is there a second?
I second it.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion on those items? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes. We'll start with number 7, Ms. Davis.
I talked to Melissa about it, but I would like for David to explain to the town about court-appointed attorney, Melissa Banchik, represented the town, and I don't know if you guys saw where we paid her. I wasn't aware that you did this kind of thing, so David talked to the courts about it.
I don't think it's to represent persons who can't afford an attorney when they,
It's public benefit.
yeah, it's not to represent the town.
That he had written a ticket
Mhm.
and the person couldn't afford an attorney.
Correct.
Okay.
And it, yeah, it's that way in all localities.
So yeah, that's basically the gist of it. We have, this was a circuit court case. I don't know if you guys, next remember the vehicle pursuit I had with the tractor trailer. This stems as a result of that. The reason this hadn't come before is because the majority of our cases stay in the lower court, the general district court. We don't have a whole lot of felony cases here in town. And this was a felony case. It's my understanding that on the general district court level, the county's actually been picking that cost up for us. So it's something that will probably come back to us. But it's a normal.
But I had never seen that before since I've been on council. So that's why I question.
Because you didn't have any felony arrests.
Right.
Which is a good thing. It's a good thing that we haven't seen that before. I mean, that's the reason why.
Or if we had, they funded their own attorney.
Yeah, I looked at it.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion?
Did that answer your question,
Yeah,
Steve?
yeah.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to approve number 7?
We approve 7.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Gaines, second by Ms. Howard. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. McDermott?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I noticed on reading to you the minutes of the January 2nd meeting, which I was unable to attend, but I had submitted some information in regards to some resolutions for not having firearms in town vehicles. Also, in regards to the architectural review committee that we just mentioned, I just wanted to make sure that was noted in the minutes, which they were not, unless I missed it. There was discussion on those 2 items on the council, and I don't see them in the minutes anywhere.
The mayor actually mentioned them, and I noted them in his comments. I believe the
Yeah,
mayor
at the
had asked.
end, right here, it says, Mayor Sauer reported that about the Bergen County, and he asked the town attorney to look into the town's policy on firearms in town vehicles, and said that the development of an architectural review board could be discussed at a future
Okay.
meeting.
Good, thank you. Sorry I missed that.
Okay?
Good, perfect.
Is there a motion to approve item number 9?
I have one question on this consent agenda.
Okay.
There was an issue when we had the closed session of the phone call, and that's not noted in here, that the phone call was terminated due to confidentiality being breached. I think that should be in the minutes and recorded.
I only record the minutes on things that I'm present for.
I understand.
So I just noted that when I came back in open session that Mr. Wright was no longer on the phone call.
Ms. Gaines, there are no minutes that are kept during closed meeting.
Okay, but do you think it should be noted that the phone call was terminated? Should be some kind of paper trail.
It's in closed session.
I think the notation that the clerk is pointing to is that it was noted prior to going into closed meeting that a member was there and that the member was not there coming out. I think that's the notation that is there.
Following the certification, I noted that Mr. Wright didn't certify because he was not present to certify as his participation in the meeting ended during closed meeting.
And then he didn't come out yet, but I still think it's a breach of confidentiality that should be noted. That's just my personal opinion.
Why would that be a breach?
Did he not state that he was alone?
I can't answer that question, I wasn't there, but I'm just asking the question. for
Normally they ask
clarification.
people if they're alone and then if they're, it's a breach if you have somebody else there listening to our closed session.
And did he say that he had somebody else there with him? Was he asked the question? Uh, And his answer was?
Yes, he was alone. But we
Okay.
heard, I think there were people.
Several people that heard
To Tammy's
in his defense, I think there were people that heard conversation during that phone call. So he was
it-
not alone.
Was it a television or was it conversation? I'm just asking
Yeah,
clarification.
no, we
because I
heard,
wasn't there.
there were several council members that heard conversation. Just putting it out there, Dave.
Any comment
Just
from
putting
Jay?
it out there.
I'm sorry.
Jason said he was going to have, did you have a comment, Jason?
I mean, I ended the phone call because the town attorney ended the phone call. I heard Councilmember Wright whisper to somebody. I don't know what the conversation was about, but I did hear that, and I turned the situation over to the town attorney. And that's when the call was in.
Okay. So, Ms. Gaines, I'm not sure what you're asking for. It's been noted that the phone call was terminated.
Yes, my concern is, and I guess we'll get to this later, the code of ethics. But I still think it needs to be noted why it was terminated. Did he get sick and we had to cut him off? No. I mean, it should be noted in case he asks for another time to come in for closed session through the phone conference. I'll end it there. Go right ahead.
But also noted that you handed out a document to talk about that a little later on. Is that
That's
appropriate to
correct.
talk about now? You want to talk about that later? It's up to the mayor. I'm not
We
sure.
have to, are we gonna
Yeah.
approve number 9, or what's the, before we can move on? Because we have code of ethics at number 13. We have a document that was handed out that's not necessarily on the agenda, but I would put that with item 13. So, once we decide what are we gonna approve the consent agenda with number 9, or are we gonna table it till next month? What is the pleasure of council?
We just need to go and approve it. I'm making a motion to approve number 9.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, item number 9. the
I'll
minutes.
second that, Mr. Mayor.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? We have 1. Okay, thank you. Next item is consideration of an EDA appointment, which would serve the term of Mr. Sieg, who has served for many years in the chairman's role, and we appreciate his hard work and effort that he put into the EDA. This appointment term would be filled as November 1st, 2019 to the October 31st, 2023 term. I did have one candidate recommended to me. Daniel Webb would be interested in serving on the EDA. He was a very good addition to town council when he was on. His background in business and his background in development was something that we leaned on heavily, and we still do as a town resident. And I would recommend that we appoint him to this term.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for that. The EDA highly recommends Daniel Webb. Daniel's, as you stated, an excellent businessman, sat on council very, with a lot of dignity and a lot of honesty in what he did. He has great skills and communication skills, as well as construction and understanding structure of buildings, understanding processes and developers and how things work in a bigger world than we are here. As you guys know, he works out of the Fredericksburg area. They do a lot of large work. So he would make a great addition as a local businessman to the EDA. So we'd appreciate your support on that.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that
With
motion.
that term?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, just to confirm I get this correct for the document. We have a motion to appoint Daniel Webb to the EDA to fill the term as stated, November 1st, 2019 to October 31st, 2023.
Yes, that is the motion.
Okay, and we have a second by Ms. Davis. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes.
Thank you.
I'll tell him he's a lucky man. Yes. Okay, the next item is we have to, the ordinance that we had the public hearing on this evening. Item number 1 on your agenda, ordinance 2020-001. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt
The ordinance as written.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-001. Is there a second? We have a second by Ms. Wright. We'll do a roll call vote. No further discussion?
Please.
Okay.
I mean, I think the ordinance is probably well deserving. At the same time, I'm worried about giving too much power to the town manager as far as coming to parking restrictions. And in areas, you know, where he's unlimited power as far as stopping parking places. You know, I know we got people, they come up out of nowhere and want, oh, I can't see around this blind spot here. Let's, you know, call it no parking, paint it yellow. You know, I just think that, I think we ought to have some consideration that council has some rights to this town. I mean, you know, especially when it comes to parking. Just parking out here, you know, on court days, you know, I see where it's a little hindrance sometimes, and then other times it's, you know, people manage to get by. You know, it's tight places in all other areas as well, and not just here. We don't have a lot of parking in this town. We got a gravel parking lot over here, we can't even seem to get paved, we ain't got no signs on there that says this is public parking. You know, it's like this, all that was a construction site lot. So we wanted to take away parking, and you just heard Master up here saying on Saturdays, you know, we're full out on Main Street. Where else are we gonna park at if you start cutting down and giving the town manager authority to cut out parking because people come in and complain about it when we're trying to keep people into town coming and visiting businesses? I can't help it that the county writes so many tickets, they gotta have court 2 or 3 days a week. But I just think it's, you know, a little bit too much authority going there. And council doesn't have control of it.
Chief, would you like to say something?
I'd just like to say that, this was discussed a couple of months ago. This was the will of council then, was to dictate the authority of the town manager. If the authority wanted to remain with council, we could have settled this 2 months ago. So either he's gonna do it or not. I can just tell you that this particular town manager generally listens to staff and council about what they want. It's not and I understand the balance of power, but it's, yeah, basically we're not, this is not done kind of willy-nilly. This is done as a safety concern to be able to get the fire trucks to be issued.
So it's like anything else. You have time to think about stuff. You have time to, you know, try to figure out, is this right or not? Okay. And when you start seeing other things around town, you know, we don't have the park. They park behind our businesses, and that's private parking. We own those lots, but we allow people to park in them because we don't have it.
I think from a staff perspective, we just
Yeah.
want somebody to be able to make a decision.
Yeah, I feel like it's this, because if we have to wait for council to make these decisions, we're waiting a whole month, aren't we? I mean, isn't this,
Correct.
aren't we turfing this in situations that are kind of urgent and need a decision made, which I think manager's probably capable, am I understanding this right?
Well, it's a concern
The town
about,
manager works for council, so if the town manager makes a decision that council doesn't approve,
And it doesn't say that. It says once he strikes the key to it, it's,
That's not
you
true.
know, then you gotta come back at it again. I'm just saying, I just wanna make sure that we're not giving too much authority out there. You know, he's a good town manager, he listens. Well, who's to say the next one that comes in here isn't as, you know, willy-nilly? I just,
If we
you know,
do
what
our
you
job
think about
right,
it, that's all
that
I'm
won't
saying.
happen.
You know,
Yeah, I agree with, Ms.
Yeah,
Boyle.
I mean-
That it's our responsibility, to oversee the process. If we don't like what the town manager is doing, he works for the council, so it's the will of the council.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we should be hiring a town manager that takes the best interest of the safety of this community in balance with the business district. You know, if it's just an issue during court days, then we put no parking signs up there for those designated times, but,
I don't think this is a matter of a power thing. I think it is, as Chief says, mostly a safety issue. I brought up a parking situation during our planning commission meeting over at Dollar General. It becomes a hazard there when they park right on the sidewalk. We're not all walking around town saying, looky, 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 just like the guy who has his truck parked for sale at the Texaco station. Those are safety issues. We're not there every day. The town manager is basically walking the streets. I don't mean that to sound weird. But you take walks. I'm just saying, I think these are not more so a giving power to someone other than they are safety issues that we need to be aware of. Because we don't want someone saying, I walked into a car, or the car walked in, no, drove into me, and then next thing we know, Andrew's got some kind of deal going on called liability.
okay. All right, so is there any further discussion? We have a motion in a second. We're gonna start a roll call vote. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay, Mark said no. Okay, motion passes. Next item is item number 13, the Code of Ethics. I'll turn this over to the town attorney.
Thank you, and I hope you'll forgive me for presenting while I have my back to you. I just kind of wanted to walk through each element that I included in the draft Code of Ethics. As you have probably heard me say before, when I do these types of documents, I'm guessing at what you want. So if something is not to your liking, or if you want something added, please let me know, because this is your document. I'm just trying to give you a starting point. So the first part involves upholding the Constitution, laws, and regulations of the United States and not knowingly being a party to their evasion. I think that's pretty basic. That you will put loyalty to the highest moral principles and to the town as a whole above loyalty to individuals, districts, or particular groups.
Meaning particular businesses, associations, those kind of things.
Correct. Yes, that the focus is going to be the town council as a team. The next one is treating citizens, staff, and fellow council members with respect and courtesy at all times. Adopting policies and programs that support the rights and recognize the needs of all citizens, regardless of race, sex, age, religion, creed, country of origin, or disability.
favors or unfair privileges to anyone, whether for money or not. Not accepting for yourself or family members favors or benefits under circumstances that could be construed by a reasonable person as influencing the performance of governmental duties. Not making private promises of any type or representations that appear to make a commitment on behalf of council. Upholding the requirements of the Virginia Conflicts of Interest Act, which you have to do anyway, and not engage in business with the town government either directly or indirectly that's inconsistent with the conscientious performance of your duties, except as may be permitted by the Conflicts of Interest Act. Not use information gained confidentially in the performance of duties as a means of making private profit. Make sure that when expressing a personal belief or opinion, that a clear distinction is made between personal opinion or belief and a decision that might be made by the council. Conduct yourselves in a transparent manner so that citizens have full access to the operation of the government, but also to keep confidential any and all information disclosed and or discussed during a closed meeting, or that is provided as being confidential in order to protect the town and its citizens. I tried to make it detailed enough, but not too detailed, and I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments that anyone might have.
I do have just a couple of comments. Should anyone violate the confidentiality, is there any kind of recourse, admonition, reprimand, censure for anyone who does that?
Yes, the recourse could be a censure of that individual for violating the council's code of ethics.
Can we spell that out in the code of ethics?
Sure.
So people are aware, if they don't see it actually written down, they may not think of it.
And just to tag on to that, there needs to be a process of help for doing that. Like a review or somewhere, how that really doesn't help.
Okay.
We can't hear down here.
I'm sorry. If that, when you put that provision in there that Ms. Cole just said, we need a process on the other side of that for a review of those violations or offenses that are in there. There needs to be some review of that. Just to be fair and equitable.
Is there a way we can include procedures for the enforcement of the code, which Glenn just actually said? No, that's cool. Once a council member leaves office, there should be some type of impermissible conduct once they're gone, just basically because, a year down the road, or we don't want someone walking out the door the next day and saying, guess what? So is there a time limit, a year, before they can make any comment or disclose any information? Proprietary, we basically, I know there's a contract coming up with somebody. I'm now no longer on town council, so now I'm gonna go out the next day and say, hey, guess what, I'm gonna bid on that.
That probably would be covered under the Virginia Conflicts of Interest Act.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not.
Can everyone hear me down there? Okay.
Not all information is confidential forever. Is there a time limit we can put on certain information, or?
I think my reaction to that is that information should be kept confidential until such time as it's made public. Yeah. Do you want me to add that?
If you could.
Yeah, I thought you could.
Also, is there a procedure to report any of these actions?
Yeah, you mentioned that. And the only last thing I have is there any, I'm not sure how to put that. Basically, personal beliefs should not be communicated in any manner that could cause another to construe such beliefs as an official town endorsement. I got that.
Yeah.
You did, okay.
There we go. When expressing a personal belief or opinion, that a clear distinction is made between personal opinion or belief and a decision made by the council.
Okay.
Does that do it?
Yeah, that's cool. And lastly, is this just for town council, or I thought we were doing a code of ethics for the town, staff, council, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am. I
So it
have
covers
that.
everyone?
Yes, I have that direction. I wanted to get this nailed down, and then I thought I would work from this.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Should we have anything in there if somebody's convicted of a felony or misdemeanor, that should be addressed if they're in the public office?
If someone is convicted of a felony, they forfeit their office. Not so with the misdemeanor. Do you want to say like a misdemeanor related to public duties?
Lying, cheating, and stealing.
Pardon?
Lying, cheating, and stealing.
Any kind of misdemeanor.
You're going to a slippery slope. You need to be careful with that.
I'm happy to add that. Is there a consensus for me to do that?
I'd say felony, not misdemeanor. That would be felony for you all. I mean, if you go out and get a traffic violation or something like that, you're in trouble. You get caught drunk driving, is that a misdemeanor or a felony?
It's a misdemeanor, it's a third offense.
Yeah.
Within 10 years.
Right.
I'll put some language together and then you guys can see how you like it.
Yeah, we'll review it.
Okay?
My other concern is the email that I passed out from Ms. Howard that you all have in front of you.
So let's decide what we're gonna do with this, right?
Well, I've taken a whole bunch of notes, so
So I would assume that we're gonna
come
have
back
those
next.
drafted and come back
Yes.
next month with the.
Yes.
Right.
Other draft.
Yep, that would be appropriate.
We'll work on it.
Yes.
May I continue?
Yeah, I think we're finished with this. Let's give the town attorney a chance to get back to her.
Okay, but I think Ms. Gaines had a comment still related to this.
Yeah, about the email, I was gonna give you a chance to get back here.
Oh, okay.
Provide guidance on how we handle it. It's new.
Ms. Gaines, I didn't get a copy of the emails. Did you pass that at our public meeting? It becomes part of the public record.
Oh, okay. It just deeply concerns me that this has happened from the closed session, that the details were put out there in public. These conversations are confidential, and I think we just need to stress that. The people that have disclosed this information need to be aware that everyone is aware that it has happened. Also, there was a couple of letters that were held back that weren't given to council. This concerns me.
Which letters were that?
As far as the council being aware of everything. The letters were from Mr. Whitlow and from Lipscomb. There was some quite some time before council was aware of any of those letters. I just feel like if it had to do with the situation, that the council should have been aware of it. And then again, the phone call, it was breached. And I'm just really concerned with the confidentiality.
Can I ask you a couple of questions on that? Because, Deborah, I see that you wrote this email in here, and it talks about disclosing all the information that was talked about in closed session. How long was the conversation with Mr. Wright on the phone? Did he stay the whole closed session? Huh? No? Okay. It's okay. So the assumption is from your document, your letter here, that it was Mr. Wright that let somebody know some information according to your next to the last sentence there. But then it says all the information was given out in detail. I don't know how that could be if Mr. Wright wasn't on the entire.
Beg your pardon, I don't see where there's any name in here where it says anybody reference to anybody.
Yeah, one at a time.
Assumptions, I mean, we're not in a question answer battle here over this. I mean, this is a discussion that is, an opinion that has been brought up, and now we're starting to assume that somebody is pinpointing to a certain individual.
Well, let me ask you a question then, Mr. Gaines. When it says, and when people are listening into our conversation, confidential closed session, you had already indicated early on that Mr. Wright was, and then we hung up on the phone. So why wouldn't that be a logical assumption? Are you not logical in regards to that?
No, because if you were in the meeting, you knew the people that are addressed in this email knew that Mr. Wright was terminated halfway through the conversation. So
Okay.
we knew it wasn't Mr. Wright.
So then are you saying that somebody else was listening in on the conversation? Is that the implication then?
On what? On the phone?
I don't know where you said, Deborah, you said people were listening into our confidential closed session.
Yes.
So how, are we being bugged? Or there's something being bugged here? That's
Well,
my
I
concern.
respect the
My
mayor
concern.
and the attorney and their decision to terminate that phone call as they were sitting there and heard it themselves. I respect their decision.
I understand that piece.
That's what I'm
Yeah, I
going
understand that piece totally. So that was a very small portion of the closed session. My understanding, I wasn't there. But then you're saying somebody else was listening to the confidential conversation? How would that happen? Oh, do we think we were being bugged? Is there a bug in the?
Who are you asking, Glenn? If you want to reference my email, I'll speak to that.
Yeah.
So I was referencing another situation in the community where a council member was out in the community and they were discussing a private closed session meeting and what went on. And there were several people in the community that heard that. I will not mention any names because that is not the attention. I don't feel like that gives us, that's not what we're here to discuss. I wrote that email because I was very disappointed. I'm very disappointed in a lot of the behaviors that I've seen from this council.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very disappointed that when we have a closed session, regardless if you are at home and you testify that you're there alone, or if you're going out in the community and you are having discussions out in the community about what went on.
Yeah,
That is what happened. I heard it, other people did.
Okay.
So that's not a question, it didn't happen.
That always concerns us. It's always an issue. It happens. People breach a trust because that is a trust. It's happened to this council before you got on this council, before this last meeting, and we're always concerned about it. So it's an ethical trust that we have with each other. And so when that trust is breached, then there's an issue. It's not illegal. My understanding, is that correct, Ms. Council? Where'd she go? She's there.
It may not be illegal, but we take an oath, and I take the oath seriously.
Yeah, I understand that. I
And
do
that's
too.
my concern. That is my concern. We all take an oath. And when we go into closed session, or if people get a letter, it should be shared with council. That's my concern.
Well, it's disrespectful.
We are one team.
Ms. Gaines, sorry, but it is disrespectful.
Very.
I sit here with you guys and you were the very ones to sit and say, oh, somebody might sue you if you go out in the community and say this.
Mhm.
And yet I'm hearing out in the community, the very people who say that, out talking about this stuff. And I'm like, how do I trust any of you? How does our community that put their trust in us trust any one of us? I know that we don't have the best role model right now in our government, but can't we rise above that ourselves? That's what I'm asking you.
You ask me personally?
I'm asking all of us. I'm looking at myself too, because I know I'm not perfect.
I can tell you, I've been sitting on this council for over 14 years, and I have not discussed anything outside of a closed meeting.
I'm glad of that.
For 14 years.
Then maybe you're the only one here that I can trust.
Maybe, I don't know the answer to that, but I know that I'm trustworthy. And so if that's an issue, then you and I need to discuss that. Not
Well, I think we're having a very open discussion right now about
Yeah,
it.
I'm good with that. That's why I asked the question. Because I know for a fact that information closed session has leaked out in the past. And we don't want to name names, but we could. Both of us could. So let's just move forward from here that, you know, we all have that commitment. We should be respectful of each other. We should help a code of ethics to go, and, you know, we committed to this, and this doesn't need to go out in public.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment. I don't know who said what or what letters were written, but being the subject matter of that, I just want to tell you that it's very upsetting to me that things would be said, particularly if they're taken out of context and defame me. Particularly with personnel issues, you can talk to your attorney. That's not a light matter, and it's if any members did that, I'm going to just let you know I'm very disappointed that you would do something like that.
Yes, thank you for that. We appreciate your comment on that. But I agree, we have a closed session and that needs to stay in there. So let's make sure that we all do that.
And I think we should think about having a, when we have a closed session, I think we should really consider a phone call on the closed session in light of what happened last time.
Consider a phone call, not accepting phone calls. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It's allowed by the state government.
It is allowed by the state code, I
I
agree.
understand, but we vote on it.
There are times when people can't be here. I, for one, have always tried to, and have done, either planning commission or town council. I have always called in to these meetings. If you want to start getting petty here, not everybody has done that. I think this will be addressed in the Code of Ethics. I think we need to move on, and let's not get lost in the head.
Thank you, Ms. Cole.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just say that, I want to just make it clear that the Virginia Freedom of Information Act does not require confidentiality in closed meeting, but it does sort of defeat the purpose of having a closed meeting. That being said, there are some matters that have separate legal confidentiality mandates that are also sometimes discussed in closed meeting. And so I would just like to point out that it should not be assumed that there isn't a potential legal penalty for disclosure of matters in closed meeting, because there well could be a separate legal provision that requires confidentiality.
Didn't mean to offend anybody tonight, but like it or not, I think there's a problem and I think it needs to be addressed.
I
think we are taking those steps by formulating the Code of Ethics. And if everybody needs a refresher on any closed session training, we can host that again. I can tell you, I can speak that this is probably against the town attorney's opinion, but I mean, I just want to, I know the letters were addressed to me. At the moment that I received them, they weren't as relevant until certain other things happened, the Mr. Whitlow letter. The other letter that I received, was bringing to council at the night that we were having their so-called interview session to bring that forward at that point. So that's my word on my actions for the letter. There was never any ill intentions of withholding information from council. It was presented when the timing was right, in my opinion, and I promise you that I've not served on this council now for almost 12 years between council and mayor for any purpose to spread news or be untrustworthy. So my actions regarding those two letters that weren't brought forward when they were presented to me, they were addressed to me, not necessarily council. So I brought them forward when they became relevant. And that's my story. And I took this so seriously. I wouldn't sign up for this just for the fun of it. So I do think you brought up some good concerns. I think everybody's heard them. I think we have made progress, and the code of ethics is something that we should have addressed years ago, but you know, we can't go back and change it, and we are gonna move forward. And I would say that if it was brought up in last year and not followed up, I think we're both at fault, because I don't remember that. And then, I mean, you didn't bring it back to us to remind us about it. But hey, looking backwards, we can look backwards all day long. I mean, we can all go back in all of our lives and think about what we should have done and shouldn't have done yesterday. But we've got to move forward, and I think we're trying to make those steps in the right way. And I personally do not think anyone on this council signed up to be, do anything detrimental to the town. We signed up because we love the town and we want the best for the town. And I've said that many times. So we have to put our feelings, our personal beliefs aside and move forward with everybody signing this new code of ethics once it's finalized, and trust that we're going to follow it, and we'll have actions to handle that if somebody doesn't follow it. But for us to continue to carry on ill feelings from something that, you know, we're fixing and trying to move forward, we have to put those behind us, or we'll never make progress for the town. So with that being said, is there any further discussion on the code of ethics or the email regarding closed sessions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 14 was struck. It was discussed earlier. Item number 15 is a amended budget amendment schedule. The budget schedule needs to be pushed back 1 month, and a June adoption needs to be set due to a delay in the development of a proposed water rate schedule by the Southeast Rural Community Assistance Program. Is there a motion to approve the new, I think everybody received it on their desk today, a new schedule for the budget schedule?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the new budget schedule, meeting schedule. What's that?
Okay, we have a motion to approve the Town of Bowling Green fiscal year 2021 budget schedule as presented, with it being approved June 11th, or being voted on June 11th. Is there a second?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Is there no further discussion?
Yeah, I do have a question. You know, we moved that back because the sewer rates have not been set. When are they going to be, I mean, water rates, when are they going to be set?
During the same period I was absent, the gentleman, Andy Crocker, that I think spoke to you, he had a couple of mini strokes, and so he wasn't there. When I did get a hold of him, and he didn't return to work until after I did. They hadn't really finished the model. They submitted it to the Department of Health. They said they have some issues on the data or how it was entered. He's got a meeting scheduled next week to meet with them to see what adjustments they need to make, and then he's going make those adjustments and try to get it back to me by the end of February. And then, I mean, just because they propose it, I mean, one of the things is, that's gonna give us the endpoint where we need to be when we close the loan, but we don't have to adopt that rate now. You know, we'll have to put a proposed tier schedule together on that and until he gets back to me. So it's gonna be sometime between, he said sometime between the 14th, and I told him the 28th was pretty much the drop dead date because I had to get back to the budget committee in March.
So are you far off, not along in the budget to tell us where the rate's gonna be from the water now percentage increase that you're gonna be proposing?
No, all I can tell you is, based upon the preliminary numbers they gave us, over the next 4 years, you're gonna need to double your rates. And the question's gonna be, he's gonna propose a new tiering system, a new, more aligned with how the county charges with it for their water in larger increments. So there's gonna be 2 components he's gonna be sending back to us. Here's a new tiered schedule I'm proposing, and then we need to talk about what levels each year you want to commit to. I can't do anything. This is really pushing our project back. I can't negotiate, well, we've negotiated engineering contract, but we can't move it forward. I can't get any money to pay the engineers or do anything until we do an interim financing because they changed the rules that on the initial loan money to pay anybody, that we've got to do that through an interim financing, and we don't go to the process which we have now. We were last project where we get a bill, send it to them for approval, and then they deposit the money and we pay it. So that's going to push the beginning of the project, even talking about meter sizes, engineering, everything until the summer. We can't, and they won't let us do anything. USDA won't let us do anything until you approve a rate schedule
That syncs up with what they
syncs up with what they said. And like they said, what will be acceptable is a proposal that you don't have to do it all at once. You just have to be there. And in a sense, that'll probably be good because that'll start letting us accumulate some in our working capital fund and reserves, which we don't have any now. So that's where we're at, and you know, we turn to them because they prepare them, and they've done a lot of this. It just so happened that illness struck on that end also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we need further discussion on the adoption of the budget cycle schedule. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, motion passes. Okay, next item on the agenda is a review of zoning permit 2018-010. Magnolia Morning Small Intimate Weddings require the public hearing on the operation after 1 year.
I think it's just a 4-day advertisement.
Yeah, it's just a motion. Do we have a motion to authorize the town manager to publish the notice of public hearing?
And Mr. and Mrs. Gaines, if you would abstain.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. McDermott. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Wright. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All abstaining. We have 2 abstaining. Okay. Alrighty, informational items on your,
Mr. Mayor, I do have a couple of new business items, if you don't mind. It wasn't on the agenda, so just a couple of quick questions. Where do we stand with the firearms, no firearms in the vehicles resolution? Was there any movement, discussion in regards to that in the last meeting? Didn't you present a resolution?
I have not received any direction on it. I did it, and so.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'll give you a little quick background on why that's very important. You know, sometime during this past year that it was noted that there was a firearm in one of our town vehicles. And I'm not sure that any corrective action was taken. I don't know what direction that was going in. I haven't seen anything or heard anything that we've taken any action to prevent that. So my concern is that we don't have a policy in place that says this is not acceptable. Obviously, the sheriff's department, they're exempt from that, but we cannot allow, I don't think we should allow firearms in their town vehicles. In your personal vehicle, that's all your concern. I don't want to see those in the town vehicle. I think it's creating an issue of possible violations and issues going on. So I would like to see us adopt a policy to make sure that our employees know that firearms are not allowed in our town vehicles. So, Mr. Mayor, could you direct our council to draft up a policy on that, or whether it's a personnel policy or ordinance? I'm not sure which is appropriate.
You want a policy though as opposed to a resolution, right?
Well, what is stronger,
The same.
policy than?
We do have something in the personnel manual, but that I would recommend that's where you put it.
What's in the personnel manual now?
There is something about firearms in the personnel manual.
About not having them in vehicles?
No, I looked into it at the time. I think there's a broader interpretation, and I ran into this down in Essex County, where I did permit my public works director, so to speak, to have his concealed weapon. Mainly because he was called out many times to cell tower power failures on our radio system. He didn't want to go to dark places in the evening, out in the middle of the country without a weapon. So those are the type of exceptions that I've ran in the past, but it's, the policy is no firearms other than the police department. That's fine with me too. But I just say it would be more appropriate to refine, be more specific in that policy in our personnel manual.
So if we have that, it was violated, any action?
I didn't interpret it as a violation. I knew it might be done, and it's the same position, same deal. You're on call. You got to go out to a break outside town limits, what have you.
I'm just taking the policy.
But what does the policy manual
It
say?
gives the town manager authority to grant permission.
It does?
Yes, it does.
Mr. McDermott,
Yes.
how about if I bring something forward and council can debate it next month?
I think that's very appropriate. I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Was this person, I mean, how was this handled?
It was handled as a personnel matter by the.
Were you here weeks when that happened?
Yes, but I mean, it was Billy had a concealed weapon. He had a weapon in the truck.
Well, it wasn't concealed. That's the issue.
Well, it got left in the open, yes.
That would be not concealed. Yes. Correct.
But I mean, he's been trained, he knows how to do the weapon, he's gone through getting the concealed weapon permit and all that. So, and he's told me he's not, if it's an issue, well, since then he's not gonna do it. But yes, I addressed it to him, and like I said, in the past, I have let the on-call, which Billy is, that's why he has his truck and what have you, for things like that. But it was addressed, and if you want to be more specific and make a prohibition of it, I have no problems with that.
Did you notify the rest of the staff of that policy issue?
No, I didn't ask anybody else if they had firearms, but I can put out a call to see if anybody has.
I think I put out a policy issue going, it is not allowed, so they know. It's not a question of whether you have it. This is a policy issue, so let's not have it there. So thank you, Ms. Counselor. I'd appreciate bringing that forward next time. That would be great.
Okay, we have, next item is report of council committees. King?
Sidewalks and Utilities Committee met, and Billy has just about got all his people licensed and very close within a couple of weeks. of all being licensed out there, and that's a huge, huge step forward. The Ordinance and Budget Committee met. We had, Officer Lipscomb came to us with a concern about the auxiliary program, but I think we actually gave you an answer to that, just on liability, death benefits, which we proved that we do have that for them, thank goodness. The Dorsey Lane Sewer Project has been funded via the grant of the USDA, which is a good thing. We discussed, as you guys know, the budget for the upcoming year and looking at this year more as a baseline. That's where Reese is viewing this because we've been doing this long enough now that this year is going to really give us some good information on what is this, because we've been buying so many things in the last couple of years. This is going to be a good baseline of just basic, hopefully no big issues there, and we'll see what a real year might look like without any big expenditures. We discussed the future water line project, which you were just talking about. We were waiting, I don't know if this has been resolved yet, on the meters, making a decision on that.
I met with a vendor of meters to go over the different options. We need to replace 40 meters, and I didn't want to take any meter in that we would have to replace once we were doing the replacement. There's a meter where you can get the brass base on it, and they have a insert that's wireless. Right now we have wires that can short and you get water in there, or some of them they drill through the plastic. This is a self-contained unit. And you can pop in any type of manual read, radio read, touch read to it. The manual read meter with the brass base is $51. I told them to go to the just get the brass base because we'll be using the pop-in replacements, which is cheaper than buying the whole meter as a whole. So they're going to buy it's $51 on that. And just a little elaboration is, with the water main breaks and what have you, we're running our repair budget to the high end. We had $68,000 set aside for meters this year, so we'll keep it to a couple $1,000, and if we need more repair money, we'll reprogram some of that money.
One last thing to
Deborah, I have one question, maybe. How many total meters do we have? Yeah.
A neighborhood of 930 meters.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I'll talk to you about that later. The county's going to be looking at some opportunities to change out all of their meters very shortly. We may want to piggyback onto that, if that makes sense. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the water meters are part of this whole picture of trying to figure out our water rates for the future project of our water too. So it's kind of important to get those going. Melissa is now a certified zoning officer. Good job, Melissa. And Alicia Warner has also been, she's been now the plant supervisor. So, right? Okay. Y'all weren't expecting all that. Surprise.
Yeah.
I took notes this time.
Yeah. Well, after the approved tonight, we'll be moving her to the supervisory and setting a time limit for her to pass her operator 2 within the next 12 months. She's been studying for it. Where we'll end up, and I'm extremely proud of this because we didn't have any licensed operators, is we will have all our operators licensed, and we'll have 2 of the top people licensed, hopefully within the next year. Alicia's also licensed in the water. When she gets to 2, she can also ultimately fill out all the reports with the state and take over all the legal liabilities of operating our system should Billy leave. So you'll have that redundancy in there. And so it's once we get there, I want to make a big deal of it. And these guys have worked hard, they've studied hard, they upped the requirements on the test. It used to be open book, now it isn't. They're testing them on a lot of equipment and processes that we don't have on our plant. So, you know, we've had to take them to other plants to see it. It's just not easy to, they don't test you on these basic plants anymore. They test you on the more advanced plants. So they've put a lot of time and effort into it, and so we're going to have a celebration when we're there.
And Melissa, thank you for that, but I'm not sure the purpose of you becoming certified in that?
I've actually been certified for just about 2 years. I'm working on a higher certification, zoning administrator certification, and that's to just serve as backup. When the town manager was gone, I was able to answer zoning questions, and it didn't have to hold up the process.
Okay.
The EDA did meet, and,
Gina, go ahead and I'll give a detailed report on that. Go ahead.
you're gonna get it?
Go ahead, if you like.
Well, I'm just gonna say one thing.
Okay.
That, we did decide, voted against having the facade improvement because of money. Right now, it's put on hold.
Yeah, just give you a little background, because we understand that the EDA is not going to be funded in the new budget coming forward.
Maybe there's misunderstanding. Is Joe Elses was supposed to tell you that you could put a request in, but the caveat would be that I'm not proposing any new tax increases, and we're, you know, as you remember last year's budget, that we actually appropriated a little bit more money than we said we were getting in revenues. Now, at the end of the year, I tell you, we generally balance out a bit and have some surplus. All I said is if you have a request, it's either going to have to come from spending down reserves or increasing taxes. So you can put a request in, but unless you're asking me to increase revenues, it'll have to come from reserves.
So in light of that conversation, the EDA now has about $17,000 left in their budget. So we've decided to suspend the facade improvement program. And we spent out about $10,000 out of that program. Mr. Gaines has been the recipient of a couple of those, but because of the budgetary restraints, we're going to suspend that program right now. We've done a good job of trying to get some things done. We have some, Joe Elsa done a really good job, and quite frankly, just to correct the minutes from the last time, Joe Elsa does take minutes from the meetings, and you get those. She does not take minutes to the closed sessions, as we don't here also. So just to clarify that point, she's done a really good job. She's been a great asset. So we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to Mr. Webb coming on board. That's going to give us some really good vision and a new blood there.
I do want to add one thing, that if you have some immediate need, you know, some prospect, or you need some money for legal work, or to, you know, put some team together to do some advanced selling on things, you can always come back to a council meeting if it's under 1% of the overall budget. I don't have to put a public hearing, so that's something to keep in mind, that if you need the money, you can always come back to the council. If it's a large amount, then we do have to do a public hearing.
Yeah, we understand budget restraints. We understand that process also, so we may be doing that.
Well, what I'm looking to propose at the next budget committee meeting is we give you a set number of dollars appropriated in, you know, on a line item, and then only give you a certain amount, and then that gives you the right to come back later without having to go through council and say, hey, we need more money, whatever, if you need to quit. The facade program, I was sorry to hear that y'all have stopped it, but I understand why. But I think it's something that we need to really think about maybe bringing back, you know, in the near future, close future, because hopefully we can get some more of these building owners to start doing some of their improvements. I know Jason Mans is going to be doing some on the outside of his on both those buildings, and that would definitely help. But money issue for EDA, I think EDA is very important because they need to see that this 301 corridor really starts getting advertised out there, brochures, contacted people. I was very glad to hear that Joe Elster got with Gary Wilson. That was very impressive. But no, not giving you any money, no, that's not the deal. I think the EDA should have some. It's not going to be a lot, but right now, you really don't need a lot. But as we grow along and we start growing, then we'll have to see as we go.
Well, that's understandable, but we have, I can reiterate to folks that don't know that the EDA owns a $500,000 piece of property that only costs us $25,000. So it's been a pretty good investment for us, and that's the key for us to help develop that land out there. It's a negotiating tool for us, and we have been trying to do that, and we have a couple other folks who we're talking to. It hasn't come to fruition. These things don't happen in 6 months, 2 years. They take 3 to 5 years or more.
I just also want to remind everybody that April 21st, we have a work session and budget session, so us hashing it out tonight on whether we're going to put money in the budget, we still have a work session. So
I have a question.
I just know we have a meeting and we have to keep order.
Yes, and I would also like to tell you that one of our members on the EDA, David Stark, is going to put new awnings, and he didn't even put in for the money. So people that want to keep that property up, they don't necessarily ask for the money.
All right,
I have a question, Glenn, since you brought up the 301, did we ever get anything back on that performance bond?
We have a $500,000 piece of property.
we got the property back.
We had the property free and clear. The EDA owns the property free and clear. And that was the $25,000 is what we spent for the attorney fees to go through that. So we have a $500,000 piece of property that we have $25,000 invested in. You want to buy it?
We have enough already, thanks.
We'll cut you a good deal, no problem.
We have enough.
Okay, Mr. Gaines? Otis? Mr. Ray?
We had a meeting, me and Ms. Gaines met with the, our meeting.
Pull your mic down.
I'm sorry. Me and Ms. Gaines, we had a meeting with the town manager. It worked out fine. Thank you.
Do you have any more?
No, it's our
Okay.
EDA. No.
Perfect. Ms. Cole?
Planning Commission did meet. We held our elections, and Chairman Voigt was reelected to a second term. Yes. We also, Mr. Peck had already mentioned about GWRC, what they're doing for the mapping. They had given us a lot of information, very, very helpful. So look forward to doing all of that. And they're also working on a smart scale application, and we're moving forward.
Okay, thank you. The next item is informational items. We have a corrected 2020 Planning Commission schedule. We have a invitation for a grand opening of Autism by Joey. It's located in the packet. That's going to be this next Saturday, February 15th, from 1 to 4 p.m. It's a great addition to Main Street. I look forward to being able to visit the shop. He's done a lot of good things and been very popular in the community. And it's nice to see that bright yellow area on Main Street. It looks very good, very nice. And that is a benefit of the facade improvement. So it was nice that he was able to, the property owner was able to take care of that in his renting of that building. So the next item is the notification about Mayberry Days, which we've already handled. Is there anything else for the good of the order, or? Yes, we do. Yes. Is there a motion to adjourn? There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand.